Hi friends, welcome to Vectorworks. We are starting at the very beginning. Before we even get into anything fun at all, I need you to do a couple of complicated follow the leaders around the software in order to make sure that your screens and menus basically match the ones that I am using as I teach the course. In order to do that, I have sent you through your learning management system two files, a .vww file that's a Vectorworks workspace file and a template file. And you'll just need to download those before you start working on this video. And then I will walk you through how to set up those things, okay? So the first thing we're going to do is setting up what's called a workspace, okay? And a workspace is an arrangement of palettes and menus, etc. Okay? So on our default, it'll probably look like this. I tried to reset it back to the defaults, but I may not have remembered everything. I kind of change and tweak stuff as I go. The basic setup you start with, right, includes a bunch of floating palettes and docked palettes, and you can change their sizes by grabbing on the little three dots parts, right? So I can make this bigger, smaller, etc. Or I can make things float above the screen, right? That's all going to be depending on what works best for you, but let's start from the same baseline, which is the workspace template I've given you. We do theater. So when you go just from scratch, the workspace you want to default to is the Spotlight workspace, which is the workspace that Vectorworks has designed for theater people, okay? So if you go into the Tools menu, you can come down to Workspaces. You'll see these are the default workspaces that exist, and if you switch into Spotlight, it's going to start looking more like theater, okay? You're going to have things like seating and lighting instruments and truss and curtains and all of that stuff that we use in the theater, okay? So that's a first step. Now, I've created for you a custom workspace which removes some of the stuff like this event design menu that we don't use all the time and tries to kind of streamline this platform in terms of tools you need the most, okay? Because this is already a lot of buttons and we don't need them all, and that's okay. And we can come back and use them selectively as we get deeper into the course. You can just switch to the Spotlight workspace in order to open up more menus that I might have ditched in my simplification process, okay? So that's step one. Now we're going to come in and actually change it to this custom workspace, which requires a few steps. So you'll come into Workspaces and then Workspaces. So Tools, Workspaces, Workspaces. Once you open that up, it's going to show you a bunch of things either in an application folder or a user folder. If you own your computer, you can just put stuff in this user folder and it's totally fine. If not, then we're going to talk with the computer's administrator and see what we can do so that you don't have to redo this every time you join. If it's too much of a thing, just switch to Spotlight and you should still find things basically in the same place. There just might be a bunch of other stuff that we're not using as much because I've streamlined. So if it doesn't say where a user folder is, the quick way to make the user folder appear is to select any of these workspaces and hit the duplicate button, and then that workspace will be placed in the user folder. The user folder is like deep in the libraries, which is a complicated piece of business that I don't understand. So you'll want to use this magical Reveal in Finder button. What that is going to do is show us the library that's holding the workspaces, okay? Whoa, holy cow, here it is. Cool Workspaces folder. This is deep, right? If we slide the menu thingy back, it's like inside folder after folder after folder after folder after folder after folder after folder in the libraries, okay? And that's why I use that Reveal in Finder button to show us where it is. So this folder is where you want to put the other workspace, the Spotlight CPP 21 workspace, or CSArts 21, or whatever workspace I have given to you. You want to drag it from wherever you downloaded it to into this cool Workspaces in the Libraries folder. That's it. That's all. Okay? So we do that. It's in there. You can't see it. You say done, whatever. And now when you go to Tools, Workspaces, that will be an option for you. And you can switch into that Spotlight workspace. Okay? Ta-da, here we are. Okay? Panels have moved around a little bit, and we're going to kind of tweak that just a little bit more because your screen is different from my screen. So the way we do that is just moving these panels. You can grab on corners in order to make them smaller. I usually keep my resource manager up here. It has a special hiding and showing, right? And so that is where that is. There's a visualization panel over here that I'm just going to turn off. Goodbye, visualization panel, right? We aren't going to be visualizing just yet. There is the attributes pane, very helpful. The snapping, right? Sometimes I stick those two together so they're at least in the same little floating panel. Put that wherever is convenient for you. Sometimes I'll, adjust what's happening here in the tool sets or like the size of the windows, making it fit on your screen, whatever way is most comfortable for you, okay? Over here on this side, you have your object info up above, and then you have all of your navigation on the bottom, okay? Once your screen looks the way you want it to, this is important, we're gonna go into this we're gonna go into this window, palettes, okay? And then we're gonna drop all the way down to the very bottom where it says save palette positions. And what that's gonna do is amend the workspace. It's going to have edited your workspace to put the palettes in these places. What that will mean is if you switch away from this workspace or if you lose your palettes or you can't figure out what's going on, you can just switch away from the workspace in Tools, Workspaces, right? Switch to some other random workspace. It's going to make the panels do all kinds of stuff. But then when you go to Tools, Workspaces, and you choose the custom workspace again, it's going to put all of your stuff exactly back where you said it should go, okay? And so as you work, that might be something you change or update as you go, because you might just be like, actually, my panels, I like them in this way. That was not the way that Lily did it. That's chill. Do you, okay? And then you can just go to Window, Palettes, and Save Palette Positions, right? Similarly, if you lose a palette or if you have hit an X button, like on this resource manager, because it's in your way and you just are bugging out, you can't find it anymore, Window, Palettes, drop into this menu to turn it back on again. If there's a check mark, it's visible somewhere, but it might be on your other monitor or in some other place. So you can just turn it off, turn it back on again, or you can reset the workspace and it'll bring things back to this layout. Next things, let's load our special template file, right? So I made you a template file once. Let's go find that. It should be right here, right? It actually should be in wherever that other folder that I closed. It's in that folder I closed. No big deal. We found it. Here it is. You'll find it wherever you downloaded it to. We're going to open it up. It says it does this thing, right? Pause for a moment. It says this document is watermarked, blah, 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 only in watermarked documents. Welcome to America. So watermarked is because it is a educational file, because I edited it in the educational version of the software. You can click this checkbox here, and this will happen to you a lot, and in general, it's a cool thing. Click this checkbox after you read it so that you don't see it again and again and again. Cool? Great. Okay, so here we are in a template file, okay? It looks different already, right? We have like a scenery layer, we have sheet layers that you don't know about yet, but you'll learn about them. We have design layers over here. It's set up in an organized way for doing theater, which is what we do. It also has like a sheet size and like some other weirdness happening, okay? We're going to now save this as a template so that when you create a new file, the untitled file that opens will be this template, okay? The way you're going to do that is you go to the File menu. and you choose save as template. So not save as, not save as copy as, save as template. It's its own line over here in the file menu. And when you click on that, it's going to be like, oh, templates, cool. This is where you can type in the name that you would like this template to have, right? So it could be like, this is the CPP Vectorworks 21 template, or it's whatever, right? It's going to save it into this template folder, which is again deep in the libraries, and that's going to be awesome for us. So now anytime I start a new show, I start a new drafting file, I'll just start it on this template file. So it already has some basic stuff built into it. So that is setting up a template. To then create a file using a template, you go to the file menu, you go to new, and instead of create a blank document, you say use document template, and you find that template, CPP V21 template that you just created, and you click OK. And now we have another blank document using that document template. This is also something you can build as you go. So as we create more stuff, it might be stuff that we add to our template or that we save to our template for later, or we update our template to include. So that's something you can keep in mind. If you are like a lighting designer, you can keep all of the lighting that exists in your instrument inventory in your template file so that you don't have to go finding the lights that you use every time. So that's another cool thing about templates. Okay. Now I'm going to show you some other settings that I like to adjust when I set up Vectorworks for the first time, right? So here's one. I don't know if you noticed here on this scenery layer where we're chilling right now, it has all of these little Vectorworks educational watermarks, right? And it also has this grid and has like all of these page outlines. Those things make me legit crazy to look at when I'm trying to draft. So what I will do is come over to this little twirl down. In this little twirl down, there are a couple of things we're going to use. We're going to go to this show grid box, and we're going to go back into the drop down and do this show page boundary box. Okay. These are now two button switches that you can use to turn off the page boundary and to turn off the grid, because it's not really going to help you. It's only going to be annoying. The other thing I will do as I come, once I've done those two things so that I don't accidentally turn them back on again, I'll just uncheck those buttons and they will disappear again. Okay. Another thing that could be helpful is looking up at this menu. There is a button up here that might break your brain, and that's this button right here, the multiple view panes button. When you click on it, all of a sudden you see 3 different views of the same thing, which doesn't help me when I'm drafting, probably doesn't help you unless you already have familiarity with the 3D modeling software. I would recommend you just remove that button. And the way you do that is to drop down here and uncheck multiple view planes. Okay. You probably also don't need this projection options menu right now. So if you want to turn that off, these are also good tips if you're working in a small screen, right? Because now all of a sudden you're able to read things in these menus across the top that you couldn't before with the amount of crowding into that little menu bar, okay? So like the previous view, the next view, I don't know if you need those buttons right now. We can maybe turn that off, right? Just clean up that menu. These are all things I want you to understand, so I'm going to leave these ones for now. But in general, you can add and subtract things from that menu. There are also other buttons, right, that are not listed right now, and if you wanted to turn those on, you could. Many, many options. Very deep software. Okay, so one more set of settings. Let's come up into the Vectorworks Preferences menu. Okay, so that's either going to be in this Vectorworks menu on a Mac, or I've dropped it into the bottom of the file menu for you if you have a PC, so it'll be there as well. So let's go into this Preferences tab. So these are global preferences in Vectorworks, all right? And I'm not going to change things in every single one of these windows, but they do exist, right? And you have options all over the place that you can change if you want, okay? I'm just wanting to start by changing a couple of them. One of them is in the session tab, and that is down here where it says create a new document on startup. That stuff makes me bonkers. I cannot stand it. It makes me crazy. I don't want a new blank document every time because then I just have all of these untitled files that don't mean anything, right? And plus, when I create a blank document, I want to use my cool template that I invented. So I don't want that to happen. You can also change things like the maximum number of undos. If you want it to undo more, you can give yourself more space to go backwards. But that's the one that I would start with. Uncheck that there box. All right. And then let's see. Autosave is super helpful. Vectorworks will automatically save the file. It will do it only after you have saved it initially. So you have to give it a name and save it. If it says untitled, it's not going to automatically save it. It's just going to annoy you about saving, which we like. We're good with that. You have options in terms of how often the autosave function happens. So you can either do it in a number of minutes. So you can say, please save my file every 15 minutes in case my computer crashes and everything disappears, so that I don't lose all my work. Or you can do it in a number of operations. And so that is like, after I do 16 things, please save my file. Or after I do 25 things, please save my file, right? So that's if you're drafting super fast, or if you're drafting and then getting distracted by social media and then drafting again later, it's going to save it based on the amount of work you've done rather than the number of minutes you've been working. Either of those is fine, just so you know what they do. This checkbox tends to make everyone crazy bananas because it will bring up a pop-up every time it's trying to do an autosave. So I usually just uncheck that, okay? And then rather than overwriting my original file, I always use this autosave a backup copy too. And this first option is great. It puts a folder in the same folder with your original file that says Vectorworks Backup, and it autosaves into there, right? So VW Backup will be right next to wherever your file is living, and it'll just autosave all that stuff there. You also can tell it how many backups to save. I like to save 2 or 3 backups just in case something terribly wrong happens, right? So I have a couple of versions in my backups folder. The last thing I'm going to recommend that you change is this smart options display. So this is a new thing that came a couple of versions ago that has been annoying me for a while, and that's when you set your mouse on the screen. There are these little hover buttons that like appear and disappear, right? I'm really not about this life. If it's something that you feel like you want, because again, you've used some other 3D modeling software or something, you can totally leave it enabled. I'm gonna just turn it off for now because it tends to be just like another piece of clutter on my screen that I don't need. So those are the basic preferences that I would set up. You should only have to do this once. Once you click OK, your computer will now remember those are your Vectorworks preferences. So that should be it for the prep. And now once you're all set up like this, you'll have basically the same screen layout, basically the same menu options. So when I'm talking, you shouldn't be totally lost. And we will now jump into learning a little bit more about the interface. And then we'll start drafting. All right. Thanks, friends. Bye.